welcome new and old friends. My name is 242, and today 2 got us 4 true scary stories. So grab yourself a tea or coffee, things are about to get interesting. What Happened to My Dog? By Pugaloog14. Recently, we had a pool put into the backyard. In the construction process, the pool company cut through all the landscaping lights while they were digging the hole for the pool. The pool is finished, the landscaping is all done, all that was left was to get the lights up and running again. But until that happened, it was really dark in our backyard. Our 3 dogs use the backyard to do their nightly business before we go to bed, and either my husband or I go out with them. One is a sweet rescue lab/colleague mix, and the other 2 are pugs. About a month ago, as is routine every night, I put on my coat and opened the back door to take the dogs out. Again, it was very dark. It was cold and cloudy, no moon sort of night. My yard is narrowish but fairly deep with a lot of huge old trees. The dogs and I went outside, and I was sorta half-hopping along the patio trying to put my boots on, while the dogs are jumping and running around me, excited to be outside to pee and get treats. In case you're wondering, the entire yard is totally fenced in, our pool is covered, and has a separate fence around it, so that it's dog and child friendly. Anyway, initially the dogs stay close to me, but suddenly, as I'm hopping along the patio trying to finish putting on my boots, my rescue dog takes off like a shot into the darkness, barking and snarling aggressively, while the puggos follow behind. I panic. This doesn't normally happen. Usually they like to stick close to me. I'm now thinking there must be an animal, a skunk, a raccoon, or God forbid a coyote in our yard. Thankfully, my pugs aren't nearly as brave as to venture into the abyss of the dark yard. So they amble back to me, still barking, and unsuccessfully trying to sound tough. I manage to grab them, and they stop barking, but my rescue girl is still in the dark, barking more fiercely than I've ever heard her. Suddenly, though, she lets out the most god-awful yelp. Then silence. I listen, but she stays quiet. I scream my dog's name and run awkwardly into the dark, and both chubby pugs under my arms, terrified. I find my girl laying flat out on her side. I didn't know what to do. I still now had 2 squirming pugs in my arms, and she seemed really hurt. At the same time that I reached my dog, the motion sensor in my neighbor's yard goes off. I don't have my phone on me, so I can't call my husband for help, and I don't want to leave my dog alone. I can see my dog's outline, and now that there's enough light coming from the neighbors to let me sort of examine her. No cuts or bites from another animal that I can see, but she's still on her side. She tries to get up, but at first she can't. I'm focused on her, but I'm still adequately aware that it was weird coincidence that my neighbor's light went on just as my dog was hurt. My dog then sort of pushes herself up in one motion and she limp walks, but with purpose, beeline back to the house. It was obvious she wanted to get back to the safety of inside. I kept coaxing her. That's it, girl. Come on, girl. I keep looking behind me, around me. Every hair on the back of my neck is standing up. By the time we get to the house, she seems fine. She is not limping and seems to have walked it off quickly, which I'm grateful for. I open the back door and yell for my husband. I tell him what happens. We look her over, no cuts or bites. We check her paws, nothing. Our theory is that we believe someone was in our yard, in the dark, and our dog surprised them, and when my rescue ran up to them, snarling and barking, they kicked her and then proceeded to hop the fence, triggering the neighbor's motion sensor light. She was checked out and totally okay. no internal injuries, and continues to live her best life. Not sure who or what was in the darkness that night, but we got our lights up and running soon afterwards. If you're enjoying this video, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. Creepy Carpool by QweenSea. Hello to all. I'm here tonight to share something that happened to me back in 2018. First of all, I will set the context. I was living in Berlin, Germany, and my boyfriend, at the time, lived 5 hours drive away. So, I was planning to go see him, like every fortnight for the weekend, and I used the carpooling site BabbleCar. I have used so many times before, and that there is already one seat taken by another girl. So, I reserve my seat and wait for this person to come and fetch me. We meet up at the spot we agreed to, and he explains to me that the other girl had cancelled last minute, which is totally fine. Odd, but I mean, it can happen. Anyway, I jump in. The driver, Ben, seems very nice and talkative. Just before leaving Berlin, he turns to me and explains that he has forgotten his driver's license at home and that we must go fetch it. Which is already a bit of a pain, because it's the other side of town, and Berlin is big, and let's be honest, you know you are going away for the whole weekend, and that you have a really big journey, and you forget your license? Anyway, moving on. We go to his, and he parks up and turns to me and says, "Would you like to come in with me and visit my place?" I was like, no thank you. Off we go. He's talking away, and all of a sudden starts touching my thigh and explains that he is a personal trainer and massager. And I was like, cool for you. I made it quite clear that I was heading to my boyfriend's and that I was not comfortable. He continues touching my hands, my thighs, and my neck. And to that point, I was like, do I get out? I mean, I'm on a motorway already about 2 hours away from Berlin, and it is traffic jammed, so 5 hours end up being 7 hours. My plan was to pretend to be asleep. I thought, that way I don't have to interact with him, and he might leave me alone. Thing is, I really fell asleep, and when I woke up, I realized I'm in the middle of nowhere, like on a tiny road in the middle of a forest, and the guy turns to me and says, "You know, if I wanted to, I could kidnap you and take you into the woods." I played tough and said, "You don't scare me," and I planned for all situations. He took no notice, and my boyfriend rang me at that point. I explained and kept him posted. So, as we continue out of the woods, he decides it's now time to eat, so we lose another 45 minutes while he does his own thing. I basically tell him I'm fed up and want no more stops, and he tells me that he is tired and that in order to do so and keep him awake, I must massage him. I felt totally stuck, so I briefly touched his neck, as in to say, now move. We arrived, finally. My boyfriend was not there waiting for me, because I did not want to fight. I reported him to the carpool site, and he has now been banned. There. I hope it never happens to anyone else. Hey, don't forget to leave a comment and tell me what you think down below. I really wish I could have done something. By Nintendo Doll 89. Sorry this is so long. I think I just need to get it out fully. This happened back in early 2005. I was 15 and a sophomore in high school. Well, I had a lot of friends at school. My closest friend had strict parents. I wasn't able to hang out with them outside of school until senior year. I would get bored on the weekends and take frequent walks around the neighborhood, sometimes stopping at 7-Eleven or Starbucks to buy a snack or a coffee. On this particular Sunday, I was taking a shower before I left. My hair was still wet. I remember walking outside and thinking, it looks like it's going to rain. Maybe I shouldn't take a walk today. Against my better judgment, I took my walk. I encountered a stray dog, which was odd to me since I rarely saw stray or lost dogs in my neighborhood. She was obviously heavily pregnant. Her nipples were swollen, but didn't show any signs of prior suckling. I tried approaching her, but she was very protective and growled at me. We were on a busy street, and I debated calling animal control to pick her up, but she just kept on walking. There was no way I'd be able to hold her in one place with how aggressive she was. I got sad and said, "I'm sorry, I can't help you," and walked in the opposite direction. I have two different usual routes on my walk. I opted for the second one after feeling defeated about the stray dog. I walked a little over half a mile up the nearest street after I turned around and got to the next busiest street. During this time, it finally starts to rain. To my surprise, I saw the stray dog again. As soon as she noticed me walking down her same path, she ran across the street, nearly getting hit by an oncoming car. She made her cross the street and started to bark at me. I debated about calling animal control. Maybe I could distract her long enough for them to come get her. No luck. She ended up walking into the townhouse complex she was in front of. I still feel guilty about what I could have done for her. I started my walk back home then. A moment later, a white SUV at the stoplight got closer to the curb. I ignored it. I then heard someone call out, "Excuse me." I turned around. From a distance, I thought the guy driving the SUV was my friend's dad. He had the same model vehicle, and the driver looked like him. As I got closer to this guy's vehicle, my stomach sank. It wasn't him. I had no idea who this man was. "Do you need a ride?" he asked. I felt uncomfortable, but tried to be friendly. "No, thanks. I live a few blocks away." I gestured my head to the south. He was persistent. "There's no trouble. I'm going that way. Let me take you home." In that moment, I remember my hair was still wet from the shower earlier. I must have looked kinda pathetic. My clothes weren't soaked, though. "No, really, it's fine, sir," I said. "Really, it's no trouble. Come on, it's raining." At this point, I'm fed up, along with the honking cars behind him as the light had changed green. "No, fuck off, you fucking creepy scumbag." I booked it down the road and ran as fast as I could for a couple of blocks until my lungs couldn't take it anymore. I did look back to see which direction he went, and he drove straight on. He was not going in my same direction. I only told a few of my friends the next day at school. Most of them said I dodged a bullet, but a few said maybe he was just a good Samaritan trying to help. I tried telling my school, but since it happened on the weekend, they said they couldn't do anything. I had figured I'd never know until earlier tonight when I looked up crimes in my hometown. I googled my hometown's name and human trafficking. I found an article about a man in his late 50s soliciting a 16-year-old girl online and paying her for sex. The incident happened in 2013, and he was arrested and charged in 2015. He admitted to having other victims, but none of them ever came forward. None of the articles had pictures of him in them, so I googled his name. Sure enough, it's the same guy. I still remember his face and the creepy way he smiled when I kept saying no. Old Man and the White Van by AnnonymousAmongUs. Back in '92, Mortal Kombat had come out in the arcades. Being a 12-year-old boy at the time, I was hooked on it. Lucky for me, there was an arcade 3 miles from where I lived. It was inside Union Station in Minneapolis. Back in those days, it was really common for kids my age to leave the house in the morning and not come back until dark. Anytime I was bored and had a few dollars, I'd walk down there and play some games. I got so good at Mortal Kombat that I could sometimes make a few dollars last me over an hour. I would sometimes go with friends, but often alone. So one day, I had $5 on me and really wanted to play some Mortal Kombat. I left around 5:30 p.m. I would walk north up Meridian Street all the way. There were some businesses along the way that would then give over to houses before you back to another business's area. Just as I was passing Spruce Deli, I noticed a white van heading south. The driver was a white man who looked to be in his 60s with short white hair and a handlebar mustache. He had a beefy build. As he drove past, he stretched his neck around so he could keep a looking at me. I thought it was weird, but dismissed it. I get another block down the road, and here comes the van again. It had some rust-out parts that made it easy to identify. I wasn't really nervous yet, as he hadn't really done anything. As he went past, it was the same behavior as before. He drove much slower this time, trying to keep his eye on me as long as possible. Okay, now I was officially creeped out. I still had about a mile to go to get to Union Station. After he passed, I could hear his engine rev up and looked behind me to watch him speed the corner and make a right turn. I just knew he was coming back around. I was into an area with houses and cars parked on the street, but nobody was outside. This area was shaded by trees, so I thought I could just duck down and hide. When I saw him coming, I thought, fuck that old guy, I ain't hiding from him. Thought I was tough, even though I was only about 5 foot nothing and 110 pounds. This time, he looked totally changed. His face was red, and he looked to be sweating. His teeth were bared like he was biting down really hard. That was enough to wake me up to what was happening. I ran as fast as I could. I was back in the open now where there were more businesses again. I could see people now, but that really didn't register to me. I could hear the van speeding up the block on the other side of me. He came around the corner, but I didn't get a look this time. I just kept my vision forward, focusing on running. I finally made it inside Union Station. I ran over to the first payphone I saw and I called home. My mom answered. I told her I really needed her to come pick me up. Some crazy old man was following me. She just said, okay, and told me to stay inside. She was there 10 minutes later. It was all over and forgotten until a week later. I just happened to be walking through the living room. The news was on, and there was the mugshot of the man in the white van. Then there was a shot of a police outside his home, and the white van was parked in the driveway. He had been arrested for attempting kidnapping. I was freaking out again, thinking about what almost happened to me. I never told my mom about it, because I was afraid she would stop letting me go out. I think I also blocked it out because I didn't think about it for years. I do hope you enjoyed these stories. Tell me what you think down below. If you liked this video, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new, subscribe and change that pretty little bell to all notifications. All of these things help the channel, but also sharing the video and the channel help as well. I also have a Patreon and I do have merch. If you'd like to check them out, all the links are in the tree link down below. But as always, thank you for watching. I hope you have a good day.